Hi, and welcome to episode 4 of the Groomer Next Door. This is Chris Green, and I am your co-host. And sitting next to me is Sarah Green. Say hi.
Hello.
Well, today, first of all, we would like to tell you we're coming to you again from McDonald's. Our daughter is actually playing in the play area, so we do actually apologize for all of the sound that you're going to hear behind you. But hopefully the mic will only pick us up and you'll just hear a little bit in the background.
Unless it's entertaining, then we do not apologize.
That is correct. But actually, on a plus side, if you're wondering what all that sound is, state troopers for Missouri are here and they're raising money for the Special Olympics. So if you are in the Rolla area, find out where your local state troopers are raising money to help a good cause, which is pretty much what we're always out for. So with that said, let's get started on this episode. We're going to touch on a bunch of questions that we've had over the last few days. Again, you can always email us at thegροomernextdoor@yahoo.com. We have almost 500 views, so we'd like to actually thank you for everything. All right, so Sarah, are you ready to get started?
Yes, as long as I don't have too many distractions of my daughter playing with something I can't quite see. Anywho, sorry.
Okay, well, I'm going to start asking you some of the questions from our listeners. And again, we do thank you for sending in questions. All right, so starting with question 1. Will my pet be sedated for grooming?
Most groomers do not sedate in-house. Most groomers shouldn't sedate in-house. I have groomed sedated dogs, but they came in with a sedative already in their system. I have one particular dog. Her name's Bailey. She's a little Shih Tzu, and she is not very nice to do her face. So, with the sedative given, I am able to complete her face. You have to check with the groomer on whether or not they feel comfortable with taking a sedated dog. When you're taking a sedated dog, their breathing can be a lot more shallower than a normal wide awake dog. But there are some perks to grooming a sedated dog. I tell people that it's always best to make sure they're kind of in a twilight where they're groggy, they're not sleepy, they're not falling asleep, and they're not drunk in a sense, wobbling and can't stand up. All I need them to do is have enough sedative in them to make the reaction slower, so I have more time to react.
All right, and that would not only go for grooming him, that would also go for bathing, drying, which a lot of people don't understand. A lot of different groomers have different tactics on drying. With ours, we have a really good machine that actually helps dry, but it could also scare them, correct?
Yes, the high velocity force dryer is very loud. It's blowing air. You know, the air has to be at a certain pressure where the water gets pushed off. And it's extremely a lot more powerful than a normal person's hair dryer. But a sedative can be helpful when needed, but discuss it with your groomer first, because sometimes there's most of the times I can groom a dog that is difficult without the sedative. Some groomers might not be as skilled to work on higher dogs that have higher rates of freak out, I guess. Just talk to the vet, talk to the groomer, make sure all lines of communication's open.
This pretty much goes back to episode 3, or I'm sorry, episode 2, when we covered meeting your groomer. Of course, every time you go in and you see your groomer, discuss what you want done to your pup at the time, and find out when you pick up how your pup did. It's the same as when you pick up your child from daycare or school. Okay, so the next question, and again, thank you for these questions in advance. The next question is, why does my pet shake so badly when we enter the salon? And the second part is, does that mean he or she was mistreated?
Well, there's so many smells going on there. A dog's nose is like 100 times stronger and more sensitive than us humans. So they can pick up a smell of every single dog and cat that's in the area. They can hear the noises, kind of like the background noises now. It's a little distracting. It could be distracting them hearing the dogs bark. It also could be a bad experience, I'm not going to lie. I've known a few dogs that have had bad experiences that came in shivering. I know I spoke about Katie in episode 2, who I had to really work to get her to come in and trust me enough to not shiver so much. It could be it's cold out too. I know around here it's getting into the 30s and 20s and even teens, and it could be cold. I would see how your dog reacts when they get home after the groomer for a couple hours. If they run and hide, if they're real touchy about a certain area, you try to, pick them up and they just whip around real quick. I would watch out for those signs. Those signs are more leaning towards they might have been, roughed up a little bit. It can happen. We, as groomers, try our hardest not to let it happen, but sometimes you have to be stern and making sure they don't get hurt, because if they move and the dog gets nicked, which can happen, and a lot of times it's not the groomer's fault. So just keep an eye, pay attention, and go with your gut instinct on what you think would be the motive of why they're shaking.
All right, that's informative. Okay. The next question is, the groomer said my pet had matted fur, and we've heard this before. Again, refer back to episode 2. But the groomer said my pet had matted fur and had to be shaved down. Why can't they just brush him out?
That is a very popular question. I hear that quite a bit. And honestly, I've had people yell at me and say some really mean things to me because I told them I had to shave their dog down. Matting is not fun to get out. What you do is that you're using a special tool called the mat breaker. And the mat breaker is made up of several blades. And you got to get those thin blades in between the hair and the skin. And you rake it forward. And by doing that, the razor blade's cutting through the mats. But at the same time, you're pulling the skin. It's like having a knot in the back of your head for us girls and just raking at it. It hurts. Dogs don't understand what's going on. They don't know why they're knotted. They don't know why they're doing this. So when there's a mass amount of mats all over the body, most groomers should be smart enough to say, look, I'm so sorry, but there is no way we can keep the fur. Because one, you don't want to put the dog through the pain. Two, the dog's going to look like Swiss cheese. I tell you not. I kid you not, excuse me. Swiss cheese. It's going to have holes everywhere. Because that mat breaker and every other way of dematting is going to leave holes. Unless you meet or have a groomer that is so magnificent and can work miracles beyond any other groomer, but that's extremely hard to find.
And there's the funny part is I collected another email right afterwards that it had this one question that's just down the same road, and it was, well, if he's matted, why can't they just cut a little off and still leave some fluffiness? Which does actually add the same thing. He would look like Swiss cheese, as Sarah just alluded. But did you want to add into any of that?
why we can't leave them fluffier than
Yeah.
that. The biggest thing is to make sure you get your blade underneath the mat so you can get the mat out. Okay? I think there's only been a few times where I was able to leave the dog a little fuzz when it's a full-blown matting case. But the safest bet is to make them short. It's how much do you want your dog to be safe during grooming? Is a half inch of hair worth risking hurting your dog? No, it's not. Not because you want a little more fuzz. I don't want to be rude, but we got to be real. And the real part about it is to get underneath those mats. So the proper answer, as a groomer tells you, I'm sorry, but it's too matted, we need a shave. Your answer should be, okay, whatever is safest and most healthy for my dog.
Right. And that again, you had alluded to this in episode 2 on proper brushing in between grooms. And we both have seen this in the past. There are groomers who will just tell you this is how it's going to be and drop it at period. That's it. Where if you do run across that, make sure to consider changing your groomer because they should be as forthcoming to you as what Sarah was telling.
Another thing, too, is that, obviously the groomer should be nice enough and say to you, I'm sorry, but we are going to have to do this. Versus, well, your dog's matted, we're going to shave. If you don't like it, take your dog somewhere else. Take them up on that offer. Take your dog somewhere else, somewhere more caring and kind. Now, like we talked about in episode 2, if you kept up the brushing at home and you knew what to look for mats, and you knew that there was only a mat here or a mat there, that can take just a little bit of the matting and it'll be fine. You can put your dog through that and the dog's not even going to notice. So try to avoid groomers who find 1 or 2 mats and want to shave them down because it's easier than leaving a longer cut. So the more you work with your pet at home, the more you are knowledgeable and able to speak to a groomer on a level keel. Just be familiar with your dog.
Very good. And, having a little girl, we know what it's like to have a little girl with long hair that if we don't brush her hair every day, it would get ratty just like a dog's fur. And if we didn't brush her hair, it would just be shaved off. So the next question, and again, I lined all these down to kind of one area, which was matted fur, was somebody asked, well, why do they have to shave so close?
Well, that goes back to what I just said. The shaving so close is because you have to get behind the knot in order for the blades to glide through. If a groomer doesn't take a short enough blade and it's pulling on the skin just to leave it 1/8 of an inch longer for the customer wanting it, it could pull the skin up in between the blades, and there you go, you got a 1/2 inch cut. It's not smart, and I don't know, to me, it's psychotic, really.
Well, it's dangerous to the pet, and the whole point of this is to actually help educate everybody on pet health and safety, which is what we started on this, and it is the only one of its kind. So hopefully this will metabolize into more. All right, so off that subject, here's a really good question. Why does my pet have to stay so long at the groomer?
That's another good question. I hear almost on a daily basis. Many groomers are different, but most shops I've seen and I've worked in, they take in about 3 dogs in the morning. Sometimes there's 3 in the afternoon, sometimes there's 3 in the evening. But most of the time, it's in 3s. It's just how they work their schedule. The way I work mine is that I take 3 in the morning, 3 to 4 in the morning, 3 to 4 in the afternoon. I go and, between Chris and I, we wash the dogs and dry the dogs in the morning. And the first dog washed and dried is the first one that's going to get out. While the other ones are drying, I'm clipping on the first one. It's just a rotation. So once I'm done with that dog, put them back in the kennel, let the owner know they're ready. It could take 3 to 4 hours. Big dogs expect more because it's a lot more drying. If a groomer can get a full haircut done with a proper wash and a good dry in less than an hour, you really need to make sure they're really doing their job. A good bath that is concentrated and focused on and properly done should take at least 15 minutes. Sometimes if it's a little teeny tiny chihuahua, that won't take as long. But if you're looking at a Shih Tzu, it will take easily 15 minutes because you need to get a proper wash, and then drying, the dog really needs to be about 85-90% dry before you put them in the kennel to fully dry. And then you bring them out for their haircut. Their haircut takes a long time, especially if the groomer is intricate. I know that it takes me an hour to do a haircut because I want to make sure the pads are done right, the sanitary is done right, nails are done right, and we go back over the back and make sure they're even. If a groomer can get a Schnauzer or a Shih Tzu done in 30 minutes, you might not have the best groom in the world.
That's a very good point. I know on my part, a bath for a small dog will take me about 15 minutes. And that's wash and dry. And we're talking small with short hair. I know with a big dog, with like for a standard poodle or even our Akita today that I washed, it'll take me easily an hour and 20 minutes just to wash and properly dry. But every groomer is going to be different. I always feel details are the most important. Don't skimp out, but that's just me.
And mind you, we have a bathing machine that it's not a bathing machine where you stick a dog in and it washes them themselves. It's a machine that mixes shampoo, water, oxygen, puts it under pressure, and with a handheld nozzle. Some groomers will know it as proportioners, but it's in a handheld device and puts it under pressure, and there you go. But after that, you really should use a slicker brush to get down and get the dirt and the grime and the scaly stuff off. Now, the people who bottle wash shampoo, that's a difficult job. I mean, they have to do so much more work. So that, if they're bottle washing a dog, should take a lot longer than our 15-minute proportional wash.
Right. And even with our washes, we're not just using the proportioner. We also have other things that we're applying to make sure your dogs stay fluffy and they're clean. And of course, want to make sure we're brushing them at the same time. So, for our aspect, and I'm only going to speak for us, we take a lot of time and pride in what we're doing. And I'm not saying other groomers don't. I'm just saying good, always find a groomer who will, and good luck on it, because I know there's a lot who do. But again, this podcast is to prevent you from going to the ones that don't. Okay, so to move on to the next question, and this one kind of made me laugh because, of course, whenever you work with dogs, you'll find that this is something that would make you laugh, but and not laugh at the question. I laugh because it's like, I would imagine that would be a question if I didn't do this, and that is, do groomers ever get bitten?
Yeah. Yes. Grooming is not an easy job. Grooming is very difficult. Not only do we have to decipher what owners are wanting when they say, oh, I just want a little off. A little could be an eighth of an inch, quarter of an inch, half off. But, okay. So, sorry, I got lost track there. something in my eyeball. But grooming is quite difficult than a lot of jobs. We have to worry about their teeth. We do get bit. I've gotten bit many a times. I've had to have stitches. The one of the places I used to work out in California, every time you got bit, you had to go to the urgent care. They put you on antibiotics and make sure you have a tetanus shot, all that yummy stuff. I've gotten bit by it was, I think, a Border Collie Shepherd mix. I lifted it up wrong, so this one was my fault. The Shepherd whipped around, and I have teeth marks under my jaw and on top of my head. That's how big his mouth opened up. You could be brushing and barely hit a mat, just barely. There's a mat there, and the dog whips around, takes such high offense, and your thumb's bitten. Biting does happen. Realize, too, groomers got it hard. They have to beware the teeth, because if the dog bites in the wrong spot, it can hurt the nerve damage, or hurt the nerve, cause a ton of damage, and there goes their career. So you gotta watch for the teeth. Dogs have to pick up poo, or groomers have to pick up poo. Groomers get peed on. Groomers get thrown up on. And then the males that are not neutered decide to have their way with them sometimes. And it's quite traumatic, because you gotta get this dog to stop moving so they don't just fall off the table. So it's just a complete big, you got to be careful.
And of course, you're leaving out glands. Every time you express glands, you get that on your hands as well.
And you got to be careful, because some dogs, they don't like it and they whip around and bite, and there's your fingers.
Yep, or your hand.
Yeah.
And part of the email said, I have never known my pet to bite, but the groomer said he tried. Why would he do that? Well, I think we kind of gave you a few ideas of why they would do it. And I can tell on a weekly basis, we'll hear that. My dog is so well behaved. It's a great dog, never has been. And that is normally always true. But a behavior of a dog can definitely vary when their owner isn't around. Remember, we're strangers to them. Even though they see us once every 4 to 6 weeks, we're still a stranger, and we're touching areas that don't normally get touched by an owner or by anybody else.
Yeah, you don't see owners going up and expressing the glands or cutting nails. A lot of owners don't do that. They have the groomers do it every 6 weeks anyways. We do a lot of things that dogs don't like but still have to be done. So please don't be offended if the groomer comes up and tells you, hey, by the way, just want to let you know, your dog did try to bite me or did bite me when I did XYZ. That happens. Just don't get offended. Just, all you have to simply do, tell the groomer, I'm sorry. We'll work on it at home. And put the effort on finding out what he bit for and help at home. If he bit for feet touching, go home, touch your feet. He knows you. He's not going to hurt you. Sometimes they might if they're just so cranky. But if it's a pretty mild-mannered dog, you can do that without a problem and help the groomer from being physically hurt. And it's not fun getting bit. I don't care if it's just a pressure bite where it doesn't actually pierce the skin. It just leaves a bruise. Those hurt. The ones that actually pierce the skin, blood everywhere. It's not fun.
And that's true. And for good reference, when we adopted our Akita, when we brought her home, she was kind of aggressive to her feet as well, feet and legs. She didn't want anybody to touch it. And we're talking about a dog that shows zero aggression. And both Sarah and I both kept pulling on her legs, getting her used to it, and she doesn't have that problem anymore.
Yeah, not necessarily pulling, but
touching.
Touching it. She tugs her arm away, and we don't let her tug her arm away, so it kind of looks like we're pulling her, or making sure that she stays laying down, and we play with her feet. Now I can shave the hair off her pads, and she's just fine.
Yep. Here's a really good question that a lot of people, I'm pretty sure, have that anxiety between dropping their dog off, and that is, can I watch while my dog's being groomed?
Not a good idea. No, 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 no. I know how important it is to want to be a part of your dog's grooming experience, especially if you got a puppy. Can I see them get their first groom? It's not the smartest, but there are ways around it. If you get your dog groomed at a grooming facility that has aisles and you can kind of look down the aisle. Now the problem with that, dogs have excellent sight. All they need to see is your forehead and they know it's you. Then the dog gets all excited, starts jumping around. The groomer needs to get still so we don't cause any kind of cuts or nicks. Or another thing would be if they think that they're so far away that they can still see the groom, but yet the dog can't see them. No, that's not true. The dog can see you. Dog wants to get to you. Dog will do what they can to get to you. It's not a good idea. If you don't know if your dog's done yet, call. Don't walk in the front door because they might hear your voice and it's over with. We're kind of lucky at our salon. We have one window where someone can see in next to our counter, but we have
Bamboo.
a bamboo shade.
Yep.
That covers enough to where the dogs nor the groomers can really see out, but you can see in, and you can see basically everything with just minimal coverage. But for the most part, it's not a good idea to watch your dog. The dog needs to be as focused on the groom as the groomer is focused on the groom as well. And they can't focus if their mom, dad, hairless sister, hairless brother's right there looking at them. It's not safe.
And you'll notice that in places like PetSmart, Petco, they do have windows where all the grooming tables are accessible to be seen. But as Sarah said, these are the reasons why it's a bad idea. We understand that a lot of people have that anxiety to be without their pet for any length of time. So if that is a situation and it is a problem, then those are definitely factors you want to take into consideration. All right, well, we're going to be down to our last question, and I'm going to pick a really good one. And that is, when I pick up my pet from the groomer, his nails don't seem like they were ever cut short enough. Why?
Those are two different reasons, or multiple different reasons. One, they are cut close enough, but if you just have them trimmed and not ground down with a Dremel tool, then it's going to feel like they were never even cut. Because when you cut it with the nail trimmer, it's jagged, it's a fresh cut. Unfortunately, nothing has really took off from the beginning of grooming and nail trimming. Nothing has advanced in nail trimming other than you trim it, they're jagged. Or you get them ground down with a Dremel tool, and what's great about that, it smooths them out and takes them shorter than nail trimmer. You trim them with the regular nail trimmer, you can't get as close because you got that quick in the middle, and the quick is a blood vein. You cut that blood vein, dog doesn't like it, there's blood, you gotta get some quick stop, or if you do it at home, you gotta get some flour, pack it in there to get it to stop. So the smart way of clipping nails is making sure you don't get too close to the quick itself. The grinder will take off thin layers at a time, and as long as that grinder is not on that nail for too long of a period, then it won't get hot to where the dog will get upset. So those are some of the reasons. And sometimes the nails aren't trimmed close enough. You got an experienced groomer, an experienced bather, or some people are just flat out scared of black nails.
Yep.
So, there could be many different reasons. If you're worried about the nails being too jagged when they leave, and you don't have any plans on walking them on concrete for a little bit, then ask for nail grinding. See how much they charge for that, and have it just filed smooth.
All right. Well, as we're coming to an end of our episode 4, I just want to actually say this. We have episode 5 already recorded, so we will be actually releasing 2 episodes this week. We're actually going to be expanding our podcast a little bit more. We have some really good upcoming guests. Hopefully, we should be able to get those out to you as soon as possible. And episode 5 is a really interesting one. It definitely follows on the line of pet health. Nutrition is going to definitely be a big topic for us. We'll get into that in episode 5. Sarah will have a great interview with Keith Husky. So please give us a listen. And again, thank you to all 500, near 500 views that we've had so far. Hopefully we can get this a lot higher. Anything else?
We'll keep the questions coming. There's millions of questions that I probably won't be able to answer on my own. So if there's a specific thing you want us to talk about, please send us the email. Let us know. We're on Facebook at the Groomer Next Door, associated with the podcast Groomer Next Door, and the Groomer Next Door at yahoo.com. Send us questions or comments. More than happy to read a comment, negative or positive. I don't want you to think that this is my way. No way. I have the only opinion in grooming. I am welcoming others to talk.
Right, and you can always comment on our episodes, whether you're on Podbean or you're on iTunes, which, if you're not familiar, we are on iTunes. Just search The Groomer Next Door. And our podcast is also available on there to play on your iPhone, iPad, iPod, whatever device you want to stream off of. Or if you're happy just to go on Podbean, that is fine as well. And you can like us, you can comment, you can do just about whatever you want. This is an open forum. It just so happens we're the only ones who have done it. But again, we'll update you on current events that we're going to participate in locally. And if you are local, please join in. We'd love to hear you. We might even be able to do a podcast from any site and have you on.
Yeah, that would be great if somebody wants to have a sit down, face to face with an actual dog owner, and the questions that they come up with, maybe we can help out. And if we don't, we can get back to them once we find out the proper answer.
Right. All right. Well, this is episode 4 coming to an end. I'm Chris Green. Have a pup-tastic week.
Well, I'm Sarah Green. I hope you all know that life is short. Play with your pet.
Bye.